Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Newsline at Noon, related government ministries lay out plans to improve safety and speed up structural reforms in the public sector this year. North Korea says it's ready to resolve inter-Korean issues in a bold manner, hinting at the possibility of reopening high-level talks with Seoul. Plus, in his State of the Union address, US President Barack Obama outlines his proposal to support the middle class by increasing taxes on the rich. These stories and more on Newsline at Noon.
It's noon Wednesday, January 21st here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. We start this afternoon with the push to reform the government and make a better Korean society as a whole, we hope. 8 public bodies, including the new Safety Ministry, have been laying out their plans to achieve that very ambitious goal on this Wednesday.
Right. High on their agenda this year is ensuring a safer society for the people. Chu Sun reports.
The head of the new Safety Ministry, established in the aftermath of last year's deadly ferry accident, has vowed to ensure a fast response to major crises in the nation. A special rescue team will be formed to reach an accident or disaster site anywhere in the country within 30 minutes on land and an hour by sea. A lax response to the sinking of the Seoul ferry last April was largely blamed for the deaths of more than 300 passengers. Safety Minister Park In-young said he will bolster the ministry's fire service and Coast Guard rescue operations and hold more public servants accountable for laxity. Inspections of public facilities will be carried out annually, and safety education will be offered to all Koreans, from toddlers to the elderly. The Safety Minister also talked about turning a problem into an opportunity by expanding the use of information and communications technology in safety management and creating jobs in new areas such as safety consulting and monitoring. Saying that government reform is the very beginning of all reforms, the administration minister said he will integrate overlapping public projects and services to more efficiently cater to the needs of the public. Public servants will be encouraged to initiate and innovate through incentives, and those involved in corruption will face dire consequences. And to encourage greater specialization in public service, government employees will be limited to the number of times they can be transferred from one ministry to another, and more positions will be open to experts from the private sector. 최유선, Arirang News.
Now, the Justice Ministry and an Anti-Corruption Commission are also 2 among the 8 government ministries and agencies handing in their blueprints for the year to President Park Geun-hye today.
Yes, they vowed to help build a law-abiding and transparent society and, in particular, root out social ills such as violence and child abuse. Park Ji-won reports.
Korea's Ministry of Justice has stressed that a firm legal foundation has to underpin the government's plans for structural reform. Laying out his ministry's plans for 2015 to President Park Geun-hye on Wednesday, Justice Minister Hwang Kyo-wan focused on ways to re-establish law and order, build a law-abiding society, and eradicate deep-rooted crimes. The ministry says the protection of Korea's constitutional values are at the core of attempts to maintain and strengthen law and order. It says pro-North Korean campaigns and illegal protests will be subject to stricter crackdowns. The Justice Ministry will also strengthen legal education for young people and ordinary citizens in conjunction with the Education Ministry to foster a more law-abiding society. The ministry will also focus on crime prevention. A top priority is tackling child abuse, a reflection of the public's fury over recent child abuse cases. The government plans to inspect every daycare center and build a stronger network with the police to swiftly respond to abuse cases. Sex crimes, as well as domestic and school violence and crimes related to the unsanitary management of food, are other areas the ministry has vowed to stamp out. The government also aims to increase support for the victims of crime. The government is also going to strengthen its pro bono legal services in a joint effort with Korea Legal Aid Corporation. The Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission of Korea stresses that rooting out corruption and raising the level of social trust is key to achieving the government's lofty goals. It vowed a swift passage of comprehensive anti-corruption bill that's currently pending at the National Assembly. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, North Korea says it's open for talks with the South, but only if South Korea takes steps to improve the atmosphere for such dialogue.
North Korea state media reported that its government and party officials held a joint conference on Tuesday and stressed that it was ready to discuss any inter-Korean issues and overcome every obstacle standing in the way of better ties between the two Koreas. The North said that as 2015 marks the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule, the Koreas have a duty to use it as an opportunity to boost their relations. Officials at South Korea's Unification Ministry have said that if Pyongyang really wants a fresh start, it should first accept Seoul's offer for high-level talks.
Moving now to the US, and President Barack Obama has been outlining a wide-ranging agenda for his final 2 years in office during his State of the Union address.
He plans to address income inequality to help working Americans in the country and pledge that hard work will be rewarded with growing opportunities. Son Jung-in has more.
U.S. President Barack Obama used his annual State of the Union address to turn the page on an era of terror, war, and recession to one of expanding economic opportunity. He said the U.S. economy is growing and creating jobs at the fastest pace since 1999. Also on the domestic front, he emphasized a stronger focus on support for middle-class Americans. He called on Congress to join him in enacting new initiatives, including making community college free and creating new tax breaks for childcare, financed by tax hikes on high-income earners and large financial institutions. Speaking to a room full of more Republicans than Democrats for the first time during his term, he also vowed to push forward with executive actions on immigration that will better protect eligible undocumented immigrants in the country. Obama also discussed foreign policy issues. He asked Congress to pass legislation granting him authorization to fund the ongoing battle against Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. He also addressed efforts to eradicate Ebola in West Africa and plans to normalize relations with Cuba. He also urged Congress to pass new cybersecurity legislation in the wake of the cyber attack on Sony Pictures, which the administration blames on North Korea. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea. Connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broome and Eoh Jin-joo.
I'm Eoh Jin-joo with Pro.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics.
Analysts have been saying that cheap oil will give a much-needed boost to struggling economies around the world. However, it seems that this won't be enough to push the global economy toward a full recovery. The International Monetary Fund has downgraded its economic outlook for this year and the next. This as Beijing announced Chinese growth last year slowed to its lowest point since 1990. Shin Se-min has the details.
China registered its lowest economic growth in 24 years, expanding just 7.4% last year. Although it missed a government target by just a tenth of a percentage point, it was the first time in 16 years the economy had missed the target. However, the head of China's National Statistics Bureau is optimistic. Noting that 7.4% growth isn't low compared to other countries, Ma Jiantang said his country's economy would keep its inexhaustible momentum this year.
More importantly, we must see the potential and conditions, especially the solid foundation, inexhaustible momentum, and continuous innovation of the government's macro regulation for China's economic growth to maintain a moderate to high speed in the long run and advance towards the high end.
The International Monetary Fund's chief economist, Oliver Blanchard, also expressed confidence in Beijing's policymakers, saying the country's slower growth reflected a shift to a more consumption-based growth model for a heavy reliance on investments and exports. The latest Chinese data came as the IMF lowered its growth forecast for the global economy. The fund said on Tuesday it now expects the global economy to grow 3.5% this year, down from its previous projection of 3.8% made in October. For this revision, it cited the slowing Chinese economy, the mounting recession in Russia, and a weak European economy. The fund ratcheted down the forecast by 0.3 percentage points for next year as well to 3.7. The lowered outlook is expected to impact the unemployment rate across the world. The World Employment Social Outlook report by the International Labour Organization said that over 210 million people will be left without jobs by 2019, up from around 200 million now. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Every year, the small alpine city of Davos in Switzerland, with a population of just over 11,000, swells with the arrival of the heads of state, global elite, and other VIPs for the World Economic Forum. The annual forum kicks off on Wednesday local time, with this year's focus on tackling challenges and uncertainties facing the world economy. Song Ji-sun has a preview.
This year's World Economic Forum annual meeting is being held against a backdrop of multiple challenges to the global economy. Financial uncertainties, regional conflicts, and the uneven global economic recovery will be weighing on the minds of those flying into Davos. Some 40 heads of state, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel, French President François Hollande, and Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, and 2,500 other business and society leaders will flock in to discuss the new global context. The challenges include the resolution of geopolitical crises in the wake of conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East and the rise of Islamic State. The program also includes discussions on pandemics and health after Ebola took the lives of several thousand West Africans and some Western aid workers.
We have to deal with the issues to foster the growth on a global level. We have to deal with the challenges we see on the geopolitical level, for example, in Europe, in the Eurozone, but as well as the crisis in the Ukraine. We have also to deal with the Middle East issues, IS, Middle East, terrorism in North Africa.
On the opening day, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang will give a keynote speech on China's growth. That's one to keep an eye on, as it marks the first appearance by a Chinese leader in Davos in 6 years. IMF Chief Christine Lagarde and other economists will discuss the results of quantitative easing on the second day, and on the last day of the forum, look out for the forum's global economic outlook and 2015 agenda. South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will give a speech on Seoul's unification policy, titled Unified Korea, Infinite Possibilities, on Thursday's Korean Night. Yoon will lay out Seoul's vision for unification, as this year marks the 70th anniversary of Inter-Korean division. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Now, Koreans were snapping up lots of gold last year, with sales of small bars driving sales to almost double from the previous year. The Korea Gold Exchange says gold bar sales came to just over 1,380 kilograms in 2014. 70% of the total weight sold was in smaller size bars weighing less than 50 grams. Sales of 1 kilogram bars that would currently cost you over $40,000 were down last year, though. An official from the exchange says middle-class Koreans are snapping up these smaller gold bars as they are considered a safer investment than, say, stocks or real estate. Gold prices have nearly tripled over the past decade, and 1 ounce, which is 28 grams, was trading at just under $1,300 on Tuesday. Korean companies are less prone to the effects of foreign exchange rate fluctuations than they have ever been before. A report by the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade says that Korean companies saw their operating profit drop by 0.05 percentage points in the period from 2000 to 2011 after a 1% fluctuation in exchange rates. But In the 5 years since 2006 to 2011, companies saw their profits drop by less, by 0.03 percentage points, with the same exchange rate fluctuation. The report says the improvement is partly because companies have broadened their mix of export items that are less sensitive to exchange rate fluctuations.
Now, Korea can be an unforgiving place to live for the elderly, with new research showing 1 in 2 senior citizens are barely able to make ends meet. A report by the Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs shows the nation's elderly poverty rate stood at an eye-watering 48% in 2013. This is 3.5 times higher than Korea's overall poverty rate, which stood at around 14%. The findings are based on relative poverty, which refers to those whose disposable household income is below 50% of the median earnings. By demographic group, one-person households were second on the list, followed by households with female heads and one-parent households. The agency is calling for targeted policies for each group in order to reduce the poverty rate. Let's now take a look through some of the other global headlines with our Eunice Kim, who's standing by for us at the News Center.
Eunice, major developments in Yemen overnight as Houthi rebels stormed the presidential palace and a clash broke out near the president's official residence.
That's right, Mark. It is unclear at the moment who exactly is in charge of Yemen, but the shaky ceasefire that was reached in recent days at the moment does look to be torn to pieces. The presidential palace also looks to be under the control of the Shiite rebels who had moved into the capital of Sana'a in September from their traditional strongholds. The U.S.-backed President Abed Rabo Mansur Hadi is said to be safe in his official residence despite clashes that broke out between soldiers and militants earlier. Yemen's information minister called the events the completion of a coup, noting that President Hadi was no longer in power. The rebel commander did not outright call it that, though. Abdel Malek al-Houthi on live television, while accusing the president of corruption, said all options were open and demanded the president speed up a UN-brokered peace deal that grants them more power. Western powers are watching the developments closely as Yemen is home to al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, the group behind the attack on Charlie Hebdo in France. The Islamic State has threatened to kill 2 Japanese hostages if Tokyo does not cough up $200 million within 3 days. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, cutting his Middle East trip short, has made the men's rescue a priority while calling the act itself unforgivable.
It is an unacceptable act to threaten us in exchange for human lives, and I feel angry about it. I strongly urge them to immediately release the hostages without harming them. We will continue to contribute to the regional peace and stability in cooperation with the global community. It is an inevitable course for us, and there will be no change to it.
The demand came in a video released online showing 47-year-old Kenji Goto, a respected freelance journalist in Japan, and 42-year-old Haruna Yukawa. The masked militant blamed their predicament on Prime Minister Abe's recent pledge of $200 million to, quote, kill our women and children. Abe did pledge the sum, but for non-military aid to assist people displaced by the fighting in Syria and Iraq. NHK reports the country's state minister for foreign affairs has reached Jordan as a task force is established at the Prime Minister's office. As analysts work to verify the authenticity of the video, some Japanese media are questioning whether the images could have been manipulated, citing the hostages' shadows appearing to angle in different directions. And finally, Indonesia's transport minister says the ill-fated AirAsia Flight 8501 climbed at super-fast speeds in its final moments before stalling. The Singapore-bound plane had crashed on December 28th after the pilot requested permission to fly to a higher elevation to avoid big storm clouds. Citing radar data, the minister told a parliamentary hearing the Airbus had ascended at a speed of 6,000 feet per minute, a speed faster than a fighter jet would climb. He put the average speed of a commercial aircraft as between 1,000 and 2,000 feet per minute. Earlier, authorities had ruled out terrorism as a possible cause.
Now, over the last couple of days, we've been taking a look at how the government's support for startups, and we also had a report about a local food delivery app that's taken the market by storm. Today, though, in the third in our 5-part series on startups, we are going to take a look at the obstacles that exist in terms of a lack of large-scale private funding. Our Hwang Jie reports.
Facebook 8, Google 35. That's the number of startups the two U.S. tech giants bought last year alone. Korea's Samsung Electronics, less than one startup a year on average over the past decade. The head of an association of angel investors says Korean conglomerates instead focus on recruiting engineers with innovative ideas from either suppliers or rival companies.
We have yet to build up a corporate culture that actively embraces M&As, which rewards startups with attractive valuations.
And the corporate practices, experts say, make it hard for venture capitals to thrive in Korea, as M&A deals are the best way for angel investors to make big bucks. While such incentives encourage investors to seek opportunities to turn innovative ideas into lucrative businesses, the lack of them has limited the growth of the pool of venture capital. It stood at roughly $2.3 billion last year, little changed from $2 billion 3 years ago. Building up startup success stories is also critical.
In Korea, there aren't many successful angel funds out there. This is because so many investors got their fingers burnt in the wake of the dot-com crash in the early 2000s.
To achieve the government's goal of making startups Korea's next growth engine, experts say educational reform is vital. Many critics say the Korean educational system's emphasis on rote memory and discipline stifles creativity and entrepreneurial spirit. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Quitting smoking is a resolution many smokers vow to keep in the new year, but in Korea, smokers are going that extra mile to stick to it this year after cigarette prices almost doubled a few weeks ago. And as our Kim Min-ji reports, they are turning to a variety of options for help.
With prices up and fewer places to light up, many smokers in Korea have made resolutions to quit smoking this year, or cut down at least. Kim Ji-mo, who has been smoking for 8 years, is one of them. To get started, he sought the help of a tobacco cessation clinic.
Well, the tax increase came quite suddenly, and smokers like myself didn't have time to adjust. And I am being really forced to quit smoking.
Tobacco cessation clinics nationwide have seen a surge in visitors this year, and specialists are apparently too busy to sit down for an interview. Health Ministry data shows that more than 100,000 people registered for smoking cessation programs as of last week, up 4 times from a year ago. Those who sign up visit a clinic for about 6 months and undergo counseling. Others are exploring a range of alternatives.
The market for products that help smokers kick the habit, such as this nicotine-free inhaler or chewing gum, is expected to get a boost from cigarette price hike this year.
Sales of e-cigarettes, for one, have been booming since the start of the year.
I've seen sales jump about 3 to 4 times. Sometimes I get so many phone inquiries that I can't attend to the customers that visit.
E-cigarettes have become popular for both the variety of flavors and as a way to cut down or quit gradually.
Before turning to e-cigarettes, I smoked for about 20 years. I changed because it's cheaper in the long run, and there is no smell, so I can freely interact with others.
Other smoking cessation products such as patches and inhalers also saw a sharp increase in sales during the first 2 weeks of January from a year ago. The first month of the year is normally a time when sales of such products jump, but with the higher prices here to stay for good, the market is likely to get bigger. Whether the craze will lead to an overall decrease in the smoking rate, which the government hopes to see decline to 35% from the current 42%, is something only time will tell. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
It's a wet day for most parts of the country. It started raining in Jeju Island, and right now it's spreading to other parts of the nation. And there could be snow in some parts of the country, including Gangwon-do province, which could see up to 10 centimeters of heavy snowfall, while Seoul and the surrounding areas will not see any rain or snow during the day, but could overnight, though it should be very light. In the meantime, temperatures will continue to be mild, hovering way above the seasonal averages here in Seoul, topping out at 6 this afternoon under mostly cloudy skies, while Daegu and Gwangju will peak at 8 and 7, and Busan will top out at 9 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island will peak at 10, while Daejeon and Dokdo get up to 7. Now, temperatures will not drop tomorrow even after the rain. In fact, it will actually be warmer than today, making it feel mild and a little like spring. That's all for me today. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jion, for the weather, and that does it for this edition of Newsline at Noon.
Join us again at the same time on Thursday. Thank you for watching.